What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the extended cut, minimally edited podcast version of this week's episode, where we're going to talk about how to navigate marketing your practice without feeling sleazy. How can we do it in a way that feels authentic without being too vulnerable? We're going to tackle these nuances and more today.
Are you sad? Anxious? Stuck in your childhood patterns again? Don't wait. Call now to book a 50-minute transformation session with me, your local licensed therapist. With just one session per week for the rest of your natural life, you too can overcome your deepest fears, process your trauma, and finally become the emotionally stable adults your parents always hoped you would be. But wait, there's more. If you call in the next 10 minutes, we'll throw in free validation and a custom breathing exercise. That's a $3,000 value, absolutely free. So what are you waiting for? Get off the couch and call now. Therapy, it's not just a want, it's a copay.
Okay, obviously therapy doesn't look like that. I'm just having a little bit of fun with these skits. But sometimes marketing our practice can kind of feel like a sleazy, salesy infomercial. And it can be really tricky to find the balance between marketing our practice while staying authentic, because we all know it does not feel authentic to say, buy now in 3 easy installments. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about this a little more. Over the almost 7 years that I've been making these videos, oh my goodness, I feel old. I have touched on marketing your therapy practice from so many angles, and yet still, as I talk to therapists, oftentimes the biggest roadblocks are much bigger, much more emotional than simply like, I don't have quite the right steps in place to market my practice. And there's an aspect of this that I'd like to focus on specifically today. And it's this idea that, when we market anything, whether it's, a cool shoe or, something else, you have to show off the product. Like if let's pretend I was trying to sell you my phone instead of therapy services, I might want to tell you about how awesome this phone is, what all of its features are, how it makes my life easier or just benefits me in some way. And I'm going to share, hopefully authentically, about all of those things to say, life is easier with this phone. I'm glad I have it and you probably want it too. Here's the thing. With therapy, the therapy services are the product, but on a deeper level, like we are the product. And what a vulnerable thing. It's not like pulling out an object like a phone and saying, check out how cool this is. It's amazing. Let me explain how amazing it is. It can start to sound a little more like, check out how awesome I am. I'm amazing. I can help you. Here's all the ways that I'm amazing and that interacting with me could really benefit you. And that's not what we're doing. Obviously, that's not what we're trying to do, but there is truth in it to say, well, we have to have enough trust in ourselves, in our abilities, our capacity to take good care of our clients, to be able to put ourselves out there and say, actually, yeah, I think I have the skills needed to help you. And I am the product. I've definitely talked before about how we are our brand as a therapist and all of those things before, but to really frame it as like me, Marie Fang, like I am the product that I am selling to potential clients before they reach out to me. It is like I'm disclosing to you, like I feel uncomfortable saying that. I think that is likely an appropriate response to say like that. Feels weird. That feels weird. I am a product that I am selling to you. Also, if you feel no discomfort at that, that's also totally fine. I have a hunch that most of us are going to feel some discomfort around saying like, I am the product. It feels weird for me at least. And we could really like pull at this thread even further, because if we're trying to say like genuinely, like I think I can help my therapy clients, I have these skills, I have the capacity to hold this therapeutic frame, I have the ability to establish a genuine caring connection with the folks that I work with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that we need to be equipped to offer decent or maybe excellent therapy, that we're also not getting into the details of like all aspects of our humanity. Like maybe we're not going to break down, just how messy our divorce was that we went through last year, or just how much we're struggling with our own mental health, or, whatever array of, hardships, weak points, bad habits, addictions, like whatever we might have floating around. Like we may not be featuring those in our like product info page, so to speak. And so it can start to feel really inauthentic when we are genuinely trying to say like, hey, I think I might be able to help you. And to acknowledge all of the ways that we're equipped to help while also not breaking down like the full memoir of our life story can also feel really uncomfortable. Whether it sounds exactly like that dynamic or it's some variant from it, like I've heard this come up now for so many therapists, and it's usually the people that I would want to be my therapist to say, you are so humble, you're so amazing, I would want someone like you to be my therapist. That's the person who's most hesitant to say like, yeah, I'm going to advertise myself as a product out there on the internet or wherever it is that you're marketing your services. I heard that back in my head as I said it, and I know someone's going to be thinking like, actually, I am putting myself out there loudly on the internet or wherever. Does that mean I'm not humble or not a great therapist? Please don't go down that downward spiral. I don't mean that at all. I too am loudly advertising myself on the internet for 2 different businesses. So at the very least, if that's you, we're going down together, But genuinely, if you think you can help people, there has to be some way for those people to find you, and there has to be some way for you to genuinely and authentically present your capacity to help folks without it feeling like you're just jumping into that super sleazy infomercial state of mind and being super inauthentic. So I just want to acknowledge that because we're not advertising a like product like this phone that I'm holding in my hand, it feels incredibly vulnerable to advertise our services as a therapist. And I want to talk about that today because it is so vulnerable to like advertise ourselves as the product, let's be real, then I see a lot of therapists try to cope in different ways. Some of us find ways to just minimize how much we put ourselves out there. Maybe it's like we slap on, an online directory profile where we name who we work with and some favorite theoretical approaches, and then just, hope we fill our practice, or we panel with insurance, or, not that there's nothing wrong with those 2 things, by the way. But we try to cope by maybe just not putting ourselves out there too much, and then just hope that people will find us. And if that's what you're doing and it's working for you, awesome. I just know that that's not working for everyone. It doesn't work for me. So another way that people cope is leaning heavily into credentials, expertise, trainings, which again, those are all great things. We should definitely all be trained to do what it is that we say that we do. But sometimes because we don't want to be overly vulnerable about sharing about ourselves or aspects of our character, we will focus more on aspects of like what sorts of trainings that we have. And maybe we might even lean further into a training than we otherwise might have because we see it more as like a marketing approach versus, something that we genuinely would like to learn more about, specialize in, utilize in our practices. We're hoping that if we get that, certain level of certification, that now more folks will book with us, and kind of emphasizing all of that in our marketing materials. There are definitely other ways that therapists sort of skirt around the vulnerability of advertising ourselves as a product. Like therapists might mention more so like how long they've been in this field, how many folks they've worked with, or maybe the sorts of transformations that they've witnessed their clients go through. And all of those things have a place in our marketing materials, but it still doesn't speak to like me sharing like I am the product. I am here to help you. I have all these different tools, skills, gifts, etc. that are going to help you. Now, this isn't something that I read in like a research article, but I have this theory, this hunch, given that millennials and Gen Z lean more on average towards valuing authenticity around any brand that they purchase from, let alone a therapist, that I assume that, the movement in the field overall is moving towards needing to be an increasingly more authentic type of branding, that simply naming your credentials or how long you've been doing this, it may not work in the same ways that it used to, especially with the younger and younger generations. Again, if it's working for you, please carry on. This is for everyone else who's feeling like, this isn't working for me, what do I do? Now, I know I was obviously joking around earlier with my little 90s style infomercial, and at first glance, it can kind of feel like that type of sleazy marketing is a thing of the past. But honestly, like as someone who does not scroll through social media, I log in, I post, I leave. Anytime I manage to like forget for 2 seconds that I hate scrolling on social media and I scroll a teensy bit and I see a sponsored post, I immediately am transported to infomercial mode, except it's delivered in an even more like overstimulating short form fashion, where folks are saying like basically, buy now, but wait, there's more. This amazing transformation is available to you today. Click the link below to access blah, blah. I'm sorry, I'm using silly voice doing it because it's really difficult for me to take somebody seriously when they're speaking like that, but it's out there. The infomercial has just migrated to social media basically. And also like even on YouTube, like if you have ads on YouTube rather than paying for YouTube Premium, like you are seeing some real scammy infomercial-y stuff out there. I don't know if or is that just my algorithm? Yeah, it's still out there. I think the idea of this kind of more salesy, infomercial-y approach is that it's really trying to target somebody who is in a more vulnerable or more desperate position. Like, if I really, really, really need help, I feel like I've tried everything and it's not working for me. If somebody pops up in my feed and says, hey, is this you? Have you been dealing with this specific issue to no avail? Then we go, yeah, that's me. And then they say, I have the solution for you. And they sort of shove it down your throat as like, this is the way. And no other way is the way. My 3-step program, my, amazing product. It's really easy to get sucked in because we really need something and we are desperate. So we're just hoping that this might be the thing that helps us. And it works. People are buying it. But it's also inauthentic because things are usually way more nuanced than like, my 3-step program will transform your life or a money back guarantee, right? It's like therapy is very nuanced. Everything is nuanced, but like therapy is really nuanced. So it's not as catchy from an infomercial point of view to sort of say like, hey, we're going to sit down, we're going to chat for maybe 1 or 2 sessions, really get to know what's going on for you. And then we're going to explore a few different possibilities. We might try a little bit of this approach. And then if it seems like it's not working exactly to your needs, we might just make a little bit of an adjustment and then we'll try that out for a little bit. And then we'll check in after several sessions, see how it's working, and we might adjust again accordingly. And you might notice a 50% improvement in your overall lived experience, right? This is like, that's probably not going to generate sales. I'm chuckling because I'm imagining somebody putting that version of the infomercial out on social media. So even though the sleazy kind of infomercially marketing pitch can work, quote unquote, in the sense that you will get people to sign on, to purchase, to book with you if you're advertising your therapy services, it may feel icky because now you know that you used a not so cute, sleazier approach to get someone to book with you and sort of leaning in a little bit more on their vulnerabilities. They may be reaching out because they're so desperate that they are just treading water, trying not to drown, and you threw a rope out to them and they grabbed on, but you maybe announced it in a way that doesn't feel authentic. Now, I think a lot of people do this and then they say, well, yes, but then once that person comes in, I am going to be using my very authentic, effective therapist skills. So it's kind of like clickbait in a way. Like I just needed them to click on it and then I will genuinely help them. But I do think it's important that we emphasize being accurate and authentic in our marketing materials. But how do we do that when saying like, hey, we're gonna like explore and you may improve a little bit, but not all the way, and we'll adjust as needed. Like when that doesn't make sales, like how do we market ourselves authentically? But before we continue this conversation, I'd like to thank Powbox for sponsoring today's episode. It wasn't until a couple years ago that I first learned that even with a signed BAA, Google Workspace and Microsoft 365 can't guarantee that 100% of the messages going in and out are HIPAA secure. So without a tool like Powbox operating on the back end, it's almost impossible to stay HIPAA secure unless you forego email altogether. Even if you exclusively use a secure portal to discuss protected health information with your clients, there's still going to be potential clients reaching out initially, and also some clients who will still try to email you because, I don't know, they forgot their password for their portal and they're trying to reach out. So with a tool like Powbox, you can guarantee that every single message is protected. Powbox is super easy to set up and it's kind of a one and done situation. Like you just spend a few minutes initially setting it up and then it's just continuously quietly running in the background. Powbox offers a 14-day free trial to everybody, and they're offering a special discount to Private Practice Skills listeners. Just use coupon code SKILLS at checkout in order to receive $250 off your first year of Powbox. That's Powbox spelled Paubox. Thank you again to Powbox for sponsoring this episode, and now on with our conversation. I think the question of how to be authentic is a big enough question that I won't be able to tackle the whole thing in a single episode, but just a few notes to consider are, one, if you're speaking in like video or audio format, speak in your actual voice. If it's text, make the text sound like how you speak to your clients, right? So don't add extra therapist-y jargon, or, that's how I used to have to say that more. And now these days it might have swung the other way. Like don't add too much extra slang if that's not how you authentically speak with your clients. So make the text on your website, your other marketing materials sound like how you speak. That immediately feels kind of disarming. Like, oh, okay, this person's just talking to me. They're not like yelling an infomercial at me. And in addition to, of course, like describing who you work with, how you support folks going through those things, you can consider naming a little bit about why this is so important to you. And maybe there is a giant life story and we don't want to post your entire memoir on your website or anywhere else, but there may be one or two lines that you can include to acknowledge like, hey, this is really important to me. It's not just that like I have the most effective, proven, etc. strategy. It's, wow, this is really close to home because I went through something similar. Or even if you don't want to disclose your own story at all, you can describe what it feels like for you to say, it really moves me every time that I see a client move through this really difficult experience. And I have such a heart for supporting folks going through similar things, right? That's self-disclosing without telling your story. And that is a great way to insert genuine authenticity in your marketing materials. And as therapists, since we are the product, we might also extend that to say our shared relationship with our clients is the true product, that we have to come and bring our skills and our best, but most importantly, it's where us and our clients come together and how we interact, how we build relationship, how we move through whatever they're looking for support with, that is ultimately the product. And so if you can lean into describing the relationship as a critical part of the product and less about you and your skill set, then that can also be really effective while also being authentic. So given all that, I wanted to make some space today to talk about some of the most common barriers that I hear from therapists getting in the way from us putting our authentic selves out there and our marketing materials, and just at the very least speak to them normalize them and offer some tips as we go. One thing that I hear so often is, I have nothing special to offer. Like, I'm just kind of Joe Schmo therapist. I have all my qualifications. I am licensed, or, if you're training, if you have everything you need to offer the care that you are offering, but there's nothing that makes me special, or I don't have anything unique to offer. And so shouldn't I just then disclose what services I offer, who I work with, and not necessarily name anything about me or anything that would be unique to the relationship that I'd build with my clients? And to that, I say, that's not true. I don't know you, but I know it's not true, okay? We all have our own unique takes, our things that make us human. And so even though you may have gotten the exact same training or credentialing or whatever as a gajillion other therapists, you are still you. And since we are an important part of the product we are selling to potential clients, it's important to say a bit about us. You don't have to have a superhuman special power. You don't have to have the most epic, amazing story of redemption. You don't have to have anything quote unquote special. Just you being you is special, is unique, because you're the only you in the entire universe. We know this because we like to teach our clients about this, right? So I'm not saying that you should then make yourself to be more special than anybody else, but you are just as special and as unique as everybody else. And so it is quite valuable to find what those things are that make you you, and not just a cookie cutter version of every other human. But you are you, and every human has their own unique set of things that make them special. Can you use that lens when you think about how to approach your marketing materials? Another common disruption roadblock that I see come up is people saying like, well, if they really knew me, then they would run in the opposite direction. This is a topic I've been touching on the last couple of episodes because it does feel so important that we normalize that therapists are just as human as everybody else. We have the same kinds of hangups, bad habits, addictions, mental health concerns, relational issues, and you name it, as anybody else. Some of this is the world's stigma around the world is putting therapists on a pedestal and expecting us to be perfect and have all our stuff together and all of those things. So that's not helping us. But I think we also perpetuate this as a profession. I don't think you individual listening or watching this is perpetuating it or the source of the perpetuation, but systemically, this is messaging that's in the air amongst therapists that we need to have our stuff together first before we can help people. I kind of think of it like this, if you have somebody coming to visit your home, if it's somebody you're super, super close with or somebody you live with, you might not make any effort to contain your mess. It might just sort of be everywhere. But if you have a special guest visiting, you might put your mess maybe consolidated in the other room or a closet, or at the very least scooch it into a corner. And if you're able to, at the very least, kind of contain your mess so that the space is available for your clients to take up as much space as they need without feeling like your mess is a distraction or getting in the way, then I think you're winning, right? So it's not a question of do I have a mess-free internal world, and more of a question of can I contain my mess so that when it's me and my client, my mess is not in the room with us. It can hang out somewhere else. I'm gonna have to deal with it later or repress it later, whatever it is that I do with it later. But right now, it's not encroaching on our space. And if it is an issue where your mess is encroaching and avalanching into the therapy session, then that is a scenario absolutely where it's so important that you take space, make sure that you are, finding resources to help you take care of that mess a little bit before you take care of your clients. But a lot of times we have the mess, but we're able to put it in the closet. We're able to, kind of close the door on it, or at least keep it in a corner with a blanket over it or something like that, and carry on and not be distracted by it, not let it encroach on the therapy work. So that was a long-winded thought, but I really like that messaging to stick. So you can disagree with me. I'd love to, if you disagree, let me know in the comments. But that's my perspective. Another variable that can impede us like being a little bit more vulnerable or authentic in our marketing is just if we look around at the therapists in our immediate circles, whether it's coworkers or, our cohort or consult group, whomever, and see that they seem like more kind of professional or academic, not particularly vulnerable in their marketing materials, and think like, okay, well, like, am I not supposed to do that then? Or maybe even, are they going to judge me? Are they going to not send referrals to me if I show who I really am in my marketing materials? And that kind of taking over, of kind of making sure you almost fit the mold of whatever the expectations are in your circle. To that, I'd say, like, if you are fitting the mold, but your practice still isn't filling up, at the very least, something is needing to change. And I would hate if the reason why your practice didn't fill up is only because you didn't want to like stir the pot with your colleagues, with your cohort, with your peers. And yeah, maybe they have a different way that is working for them, but like ultimately it's you and your practice and your bills that need to be paid and all of that, and you that you're representing. So yeah, I know that one's not easy. And there may be people who do judge you. I totally get that. I definitely got blacklisted from some of my referral sources when I was more open, just even being open and honest about being fully affirming towards LGBTQ folks, which I know, depending on who you are listening, you're going to hear it one way or the other. But yeah, as a Christian therapist, marketing myself as open and affirming to LGBTQ clients, like a lot of Christian referral sources no longer referred to me. Like that's not a real loss in the sense like it's maybe a loss to like potential folks who might have been referred to me who might have potentially benefited, but also now it's clear where I'm at, who I serve. And so, it's only helped fill my practice, even though I have been blacklisted by some referral sources. And yeah, it's not a small, I don't want to minimize that. Like that doesn't feel good. That can create tension, relational concerns with those folks, but also it may be more authentic. You may feel better, or at least I'll say this, I feel better being clear about that because it is the most authentic representation of who I am and how I approach my therapy work. And if somebody doesn't like that or has a negative reaction to that, that is painful, of course, to observe and, interact around that. But I still feel better because I am being myself and creating a clearer pathway for folks who want to work with me to see who I am, how I operate, and to see if we're going to be a good fit. So I kind of went on a little tangent there. I wasn't planning on sharing that part of the story. But the point is, like, sometimes we do things that may bring some judgment from colleagues, referral sources, that sort of thing. And, it is worth kind of pausing and saying, like, is this still what I want to do? Not because I need to avoid judgment at all costs, but kind of weighing out, like, okay, what are my reasons for doing something? If I'm concerned it might bring on judgment, do I still have a value set that's saying, like, this is important, though? Or at the very least beneficial enough, like it's still aligned with who I am, and it may still benefit me in the end, even if that particular interaction, that particular relationship might have more friction around it. Yeah, I don't want to minimize that. That's not easy, but it may still be worth considering whether it better aligns with you to stick with more status quo versus potentially stir the pot, but be more aligned with who you are and potentially fill your practice a little bit more easily. Another common concern that folks have is that, like, I don't want to overshare. I don't want to make this about me. And to that, I say that part of you that has that response is a healthy part of your therapist self saying, we're not here to talk about me in therapy. We're here to talk about my client. And absolutely, when your client sits down and starts working with you, you're not sitting down saying, like, let me tell you my story. And because the product is the relationship, I know I kind of changed it earlier. I said that the product is you, but ultimately, the product is the therapeutic relationship. But when you're putting yourself out there in the marketing materials, like, you don't know that client yet, that individual, that couple, that child. You don't know them. So you can't say, hey, Marie Fang, I see your set of concerns and let's talk about the therapeutic relationship that we can build together. It's like, hey, world, I'm hoping maybe we can build a relationship together, but I can't tell you what that's going to look like because I don't know you yet, person reading this or hearing this or seeing this. So what I can tell you is a little bit about me, and then the ball is in your court to determine if there's enough there for you to say that, like, you might trust me enough to reach out for that initial, email, that initial phone call, that initial 15-minute consultation to see if you trust me enough then to schedule a first appointment with me. So we're not asking somebody to sign over their lives. We're never asking somebody to do that. We're not asking somebody to commit to, long-term therapy or anything like that. But we're trying to put enough of ourselves out there to help our ideal clients see what we have out there and say, this is enough for me to think that I might be able to build a trusting relationship with this person, at least enough for me to be willing to reach out to them for whatever the small next step is to find out more. So from that lens, if you're concerned about oversharing or making it too much about you, maybe think of it like that. Like, how much do I need to put out there, and what specifically would help potential clients answer the question of can I build trust with this person? And the answer isn't by saying hey, listen, you can trust me, right? It's by delivering aspects about who you are, how you interact with your clients, why this work is important to you. And there's other variables as well, but that might be the lens to kind of check in marketing materials to say how much self-disclosure do I want to put out there? How much of actual me do I want to show so that potential clients can build enough trust with me to say I'd like to reach out to learn a little bit more. And the last, but maybe one of the loudest pieces that I hear is just how much shame we can have around being vulnerable. And now we're not just being vulnerable with our close friend or our partner or, one-on-one with somebody, but we are putting it out there in potentially public marketing materials for everyone to see potentially. And that is scary. That is scary. And again, if you feel that way, I say to you, that is healthy and appropriate to feel scared. That is a normal human reaction. And if you don't feel scared, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. But it's going to be quite common for people to say that's scary. I don't know if I want to put myself out there that much. So that's a question that you have to kind of check in with yourself. It's not for me to tell you how much of yourself you need to feel comfortable enough to put out there. But I just want to validate that, yeah, it is a scary thing. I definitely have related with that, especially earlier on when I was first kind of leaning into really showing myself in my marketing materials to think oh, there's people in my life who might see my website or see my marketing materials who I haven't even disclosed to those people that I actually know in real life all that I'm putting out here, because maybe with that person I don't have that kind of safety, right? So there's lots of potential ways that it can be quite vulnerable to share, and it's important to tend to those things and not just bulldoze them, but also not neglect them, right? We don't want to just see the big scary thing and be that's big and scary. Bye, I'm running the other way. Say, okay, there's a big scary thing here. Let's see what's going on. What's contributing to making this feel so scary? Is there anything that I want to do with it that might be worthwhile to say, I'm going to still lean into the big scary thing? And if you determine that it's not worthwhile to lean into the big scary thing, that's also totally fine. Now, I get that this wasn't the 3-step plan to be more effective in your marketing strategy or to be more vulnerable in your marketing strategy, but I hope that this was a useful, nuanced conversation. And I hope that if you're feeling stuck on this of how to market yourself or how to market authentically, that some of the things that I shared in here can help kind of get the ball rolling or, continue fanning the ball rolling further to have this conversation elsewhere or kind of get your thought juices flowing so that you can think about it from a new perspective, from a new lens. And something that I really hope I've made clear throughout today's episode is that marketing your practice with your vulnerable self is not about burying your soul for the entire world to see, but more about finding appropriate ways to insert your humanness into your marketing materials so that your ideal clients can see that and connect with that and feel a sense of like, I might be able to build a trusting, safe relationship with this person. And authenticity could show up from deep places like sharing vulnerable parts of your story, but it also reflects in like how you dress, how you speak, what playful things you might like, little humorous anecdotes you insert between like the quote unquote therapy work. Like if that's how you do your therapy work, then let that show up in your marketing materials as well. Like all the range of like depth and shallow is all part of showing up authentically. And if this whole thing just feels totally overwhelming, you don't even know where to start, then here's a little encouragement for you. You don't have to get it perfect. And just find like one tiny, manageable way to show up authentically in your marketing materials. It could be like the smallest thing, but just like try it on a little bit. Like maybe it's that like you have sort of a goofy sense of humor. I don't know, you love this like goofy fringe movie or something, and you put that somewhere in your marketing materials. Like it could be something very small and lighthearted, but I get that if it's terrifying, it doesn't feel small and lighthearted. So just find a small bite-sized way to challenge yourself to lean in a little bit. See what it's like. It might feel good. You might like it. Just see. And the other piece that I want to emphasize is like our clients get that we are not perfect. That's something I've had to learn that by working with clients and then seeing them be so gracious to me when, I need to cancel because something came up, or, the different aspects of our humanity that still come through in therapy sessions. Clients are really gracious, and they don't need us to be perfect. They just want us to be ourselves and, of course, support them because that's what we're doing. But they don't need us to polish who we are to like put on a persona. Well, I hope you found this episode helpful no matter where you are in your private practice journey, no matter what your marketing approach is to filling your practice. I just want you to feel supported. So that's the goal. So wherever you're at, I hope that comes through. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.